Hey y'all, it's Dia and we're back with another video. So today what I want to talk about is the WNBA Commissioner, Cathy Engelbert, and some of the responses I've been seeing, of course, by WNBA players, but also people across the internet. So I want to break this down. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the WNBA players' responses, specifically Napheesa Collier, because she is the one heading the charge as far as criticism goes. But I have seen other players speaking up. Specifically, one that comes to mind is Natasha Cloud. And on the other hand, we'll talk about the internet's responses, which I've been seeing another two sides of. So let's start with the WNBA players. Napheesa Collier has been very bold and very brazen, respectfully, about how horrible the WNBA leadership is. And at first, as you're listening to her, it comes off maybe like sore loser. I'm sorry, Fee. I hope you're not watching. Because this did come after she was knocked out of the playoffs, after she was injured by a pretty aggressive but completely legal basketball play and knocked out after being a champion, was it last year or the year before? But obviously, like, that was a big upset. So I can imagine on the outside looking in, if you don't really know the storied history of Cathy's failures, right? You're very much like, oh, well, like, this player is just bitter. Fair. And again, I say fair, right? But I'm not going to say that Napheesa Collier is alone in this or that she's wrong. More on that later. One instance of a WNBA player backing her up with very specific receipts was Natasha Cloud. I remember Natasha Cloud saying on an interview that she was completely left out of all media releases, I think over the summer during the off season for her team, for the Phoenix Mercury, I believe she was playing with at the time. And when asking Cathy about it, and mind you, she had already said that it's very, very difficult to get in touch with anyone from the league office when you have a problem. But when she did speak with Cathy about it, verbatim, what Cathy told her was, well, you don't fit the brand, or I believe it was the image that we're looking to promote for the team right now. Baby, she's part of the team. And even if that is what it was going to be, there's a much better way to say that, considering you're the one leading the entire organization. But I digress. There is a storied history of Cathy Engelbert's failures as a commissioner, and I remember seeing it most prominently during 2020. After George Floyd was brutally murdered, the WNBA had an extremely strong response, from the warm up teas to the outspoken statements on Twitter and across all social media platforms from the WNBA players. They were very adamant about continuing the Black Lives Matter movement and showcasing the importance of Black lives across America. Kathy had a couple choices, right? She could have backed her players, best choice in my opinion. She could have released a statement that acknowledged the reality of what her players have to deal with on a daily basis. She could have done nothing, but she also didn't do. But what she did do was probably for the worst. And somehow a combination of all those different options she had. Cathy released this very tepid statement talking about how, she's aware of the situation, but she didn't really take sides either way. I'll have to research it a little bit more, but I do understand how it left me feeling. You know that quote by Maya Angelou, people forget what you said and did, but they'll never forget how you made you feel. Cathy, I remember how you made me feel. And it made me feel like, hey, this white woman heading this wonderful, mostly black athletics association basically has no stance or is against what her players are so adamantly standing up for, right? That's the sentiment I was left with. And I wasn't alone in that. I've seen WNBA players echo those similar sentiments. And of course my friends, black and non-black alike. Fast forward to 2025, and I think a more pertinent example that is fresh in everyone's minds is the onslaught of hate and vitriol and renewed and emboldened racism that came into the WNBA by nature of Caitlin Clark exposing the league to so many more eyes, right? And I'm not saying like Caitlin Clark is responsible. I do feel like she should have taken more responsibility because most of these people were supporting her. But again, I digress. My point is, specifically, if we look at players like Angel Reese, who made a bag off of the hate, but experienced so much hate, right? And so much online cyberbullying, right? It was a perfect opportunity for Engelberg, not just in defense of Angel Reese, but in defense of the product, of the players at large, to step in and spearhead or initiate an entire campaign or entire program or even a conversation about this problem. And again, I felt that her response was delayed. It wasn't until specific players, Caitlin, were being targeted, that she felt like she needed to speak up. But then again, it wasn't something sustainable or something that felt like she really even gave a damn, to be honest. And so, with those two things in mind, I think it's important for us to remember that Cathy is a business owner, right? It's important for us to remember that Cathy is a business owner, and she has ushered the WNBA through one of the biggest booms that we've seen for a sports association, at least since I've been alive, right? Through the WNBA. So now let's move on to the internet's response to this. Twofold, right? I've seen a twofold response. So on the one hand, we have people, and I'm in this camp, who are 1,000% behind Napheesa Collier, especially knowing the level of character that Fee has. How you do anything is how you do everything. Even if you just see the way she plays ball, you know that she comes to everything with a level of dedication, commitment, and integrity that is unparalleled, right? Knowing that about her, when I hear her speak so vehemently, to be honest, about the leader of an organization that she is employed by, I lock in. I pay attention. I listen in, right? Because at the end of the day, like, Napheesa Collier is not the type of woman to just pop mess for no reason without an intention behind it. And so there are folks who are adamantly behind her, who understand where she's coming from, who, like me, have instances in the past of Cathy Engelbert's leadership, if not being horrible, then definitely questionable and leaving you wanting or expecting a bit more from her as the head of this beautiful, amazing, diverse, popular, and ever booming organization, right? I don't really want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the other reaction I've been seeing. And I will say that I've been seeing this reaction mostly from white men, older white men, no shade, but it seems like they are much more nitpicky when it comes to Napheesa Collier's statements. And they raise good points, I must say, but some of those points, before I get into my butt, some of those points including she owns Unrivaled, right? So it's a direct conflict of interest. That's really the major one. And one I mentioned earlier in the video, she lost. So she might just be being a sore loser, right? And to these 2 points, I say this: how men conduct business is not the same way women conduct business, right? As a woman, and I see this in Napheesa Collier, I've seen this just by nature of my professional career in the collegiate landscape, collegiate sports landscape. Women, they want to do things and they will do things. We saw it with Unrivaled, right? They will do things, but they will do it the right way, right? And so it may seem like, oh, she's being a sore loser. She has a conflict of interest because she owns Unrivaled. But I think the point that these people are missing is that when women want to do something, business or otherwise, they want to make sure they're doing it the right way, right? Cathy Engelbert has been doing her job. She has not been doing it the right way. She has burned bridges. I take that back. She hasn't even built the bridges, right? Between players, between coaches. And this is not my words. These are the words of players and the coaches in the Women's National Basketball Association, right? So she has not made these relationships. And again, women watching this understand that relationships, I take that back. Humans watching this should understand that relationships are foundational to any type of creation. Like, I call to mind how at a baseball, no, it was a tennis match, a CEO I saw on Instagram snatched a signed hat out of a child's hands, right? That's a relationship. Nothing to do with business. But because of the way he acted in that relationship, right? There was a response, there was a reaction. And I'm pretty sure either he was asked to step down, he was fired, or like his business took some major losses, right? And the point being that just because you think that there is a business conflict of interest does not mean we can ignore the elephant in the room when it comes to doing things the right way. What does that mean, the right way? You keep saying that, Dia, the right way. It means doing things in a way that prioritizes positive relationships and happy human beings. I have countless books here on my bookshelf that speak to the importance of fostering strong connections if you want to be successful, right? So the money and the revenue can come. And to be fair, like, Cathy made some questionable choices to that regard as well, selling almost, I believe, 12 to 16% of the WNBA for comparatively pennies for what it's worth now and for what it was on track to being worth. So even if you want to say that she has made really questionable business moves, it doesn't take away from the fact that what's most questionable and what's most damaging for her right now at this point is the failure to create proper relationships. And so that was kind of the whole point of this video, you know. As I scroll through my YouTube section and the Instagram comments, I see Fee doing her thing, you know, in her press release and doubling down on business, going on stage with celebrities and speaking power into her message and standing on it, you know. I also see a steady stream of critiques that speak to how she is messing everything up, not only for herself, but for women's basketball. And let me be clear, women's basketball is doing fine, right? If you want to say that like other leagues being formed are going to threaten it, if you want to say that Unrivaled is threatening it, if you want to say like Napheesa Collier is hurting her chance at employment next year at the WNBA, women's basketball will be fine. WNBA players will be fine, right? They'll be better than fine if they finally get paid what they earn. So, of course, there are lots of things up in the air between the CBA negotiations and overseas play. And like I mentioned, new leagues being formed in addition to Unrivaled, you know, some across the pond as well. But the fact of the matter is, things have to be done correctly. We saw how business boomed after things were done correctly in Unrivaled, right? Over the summer, viewership was through the roof, paychecks through the roof, the prizes for winning astronomical, right? Comparatively to what these women make playing a full season in the WNBA. So again, I just want to reiterate the importance of not just seeing things through a business mindset, especially when it comes to women who are going to make sure that they do things the right way, not just in a way that's business minded. And if we talk in business, Cathy ain't really too adept on the business side of things either. I think, to be fair, with the addition of stars like Angel Reese coming into the league, who is now, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for my girl, everywhere. Juicy Couture, Together ownership, Victoria's Secret, like loving everything that she's getting into. I don't think Cathy knew how to ride that wave. And that's understandable. But what's not understandable and what's not acceptable is the lack of accountability to acknowledge that you no longer have the range, right, to guide this league into a better position, into the best position that you can. And then two, forsaking these relationships, right? Like even in her response to Napheesa Collier's statements and her press release were very much like, oh, you know, I still respect her. We're going to talk soon. And I'm kind of disappointed, but like not acknowledging how Napheesa Collier said that she said that Caitlin Clark should be on her knees, thanking her that she even has the exposure in the WNBA so that she can get her off court endorsements. Like that's a lack of accountability. And I know I'm not the only one who sees right through it. So I'm speaking to those who are critiquing Napheesa Collier, saying that she's a sore loser or she just wants Unrivaled to boom more. You're missing the point. Went straight over your head. Okay, let me be the one to tell you. We want to do things the right way. And yes, because I'm Team Fee. I'm team women's basketball. We want to do things the right way, building the proper relationships, maintaining them, prioritizing health, wellness, and tons of other things that Cathy just plainly has not been doing. So yes, although the points are strong and they are true, she lost Napheesa Collier. She is the owner of Unrivaled, conflict of interest. That doesn't detract from the truth of their very poor experience under the leadership of Cathy Engelbert. That's all I got. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.